Hi everybody and welcome back to my cooking channel. Today I'm making sauerkraut Russian style. It's not fermented for as long as typical sauerkraut. It only takes 3 days to make, and the only ingredients you'll need is cabbage, carrots, and salt. And of course we have some mason jars to store the sauerkraut in. I'm using a head of cabbage, 3 smaller size carrots, or you can use 2 medium to large size carrots, and some Ukrainian salt. It's a larger, coarser salt compared to regular fine table salt, and you'll see when we start the cooking process. This recipe was passed down to me from my mom, who got it from her own mom. So from my grandmother to your table. Enjoy. So you guys might remember this apparatus from my borscht video, and that video is linked in the description box down below. This is a food processor with multiple attachments, so I'm going to be using the first attachment to shred the cabbage, and then I'm going to use another attachment that is more of kind of like a grating attachment to grate or shred the carrot. You can also do this by hand, but I don't advise it because it's going to take you about 3 times as long. But if that's all you have, that's okay. You can do it the old school traditional way before all these machines came to be. What I've done here is I basically cut up the head of cabbage and cut it into fairly small pieces that I could fit into the food processor attachment here. And we're using about 100 grams of salt per 1 kilogram of cabbage. This cabbage weighed 1.6 kilograms, so I'm probably going to be using about 160 grams of salt. You can also use a mandolin for this recipe, in particular for the cabbage. However, again, it will take a little bit longer and you might chop off your finger. Now that we've shredded this cabbage, it's time to move on to the carrots. So I'm going to do the same thing with the carrots. And I'm not even bothering to clean the inside of this container because it's all going to be mixed together anyways. Yes, I'm overfilling it. No, I don't care. All right, let's take a look. So some pieces haven't been shredded, so I'll just do that manually by hand, or I can just give it to my dog. Luna! Oh, Luna! Sit. Dai lapo. Yes, good girl. High five. Yes, good girl. Now that we've shredded our carrot, I'm going to set that aside. And I'll put some rubber gloves on because I'll be working very closely with the cabbage now. So this is how the salt looks like. I'm mixing it and I'm squeezing out the excess juices as well. Now we're going to add in the carrot. Now we'll mix the carrot into the cabbage until it's evenly and thoroughly mixed. I'm going to take one glove off. I'm going to hold the jar with one hand, and the other hand is going to place the cabbage inside the jar. And here it's very important to tightly pack as much cabbage as possible into this jar. Also, you should Google how to sanitize jars properly because I don't want any lawsuits for botulism. And now we'll grab a paper towel and make sure to thoroughly clean the lip of the jar. So we filled 2 jars here, and what we'll do next is just place the lids on top and don't bother with closing them. And keep them in the warmest part of your house. Let them stand for about 12 hours, and then in 12 hours we're going to open the lid up and poke it with the stick or the back of the wooden spoon until the very bottom. Then, once we're done with that, we close it back up and leave it alone for another 12 hours. So typically it's done once in the morning and once in the evening for 2 days. If your cabbage is shredded into a little bit larger pieces, you can do this for 3 days instead of 2 days. And what that does is it releases any CO2. Once that's done, the cabbage is ready to eat and you can keep it in the fridge for a couple of months. If it starts to smell off, throw it out. I don't kid around with foodborne illness. Sometimes there's going to be a lot of moisture produced and the juice might even flow out of the jar. So make sure wherever you store it, you place it on some sort of cloth or a plate or a baking sheet, something that you don't mind getting dirty. I'll see you guys in a few days for a taste test. The cabbage has been fermenting at room temperature for a couple of days now, and like I mentioned earlier, I have been poking it with some chopsticks every morning and every evening. So it's time to put the cabbage in the fridge for a couple more days and just let it rest there for a bit. And finally, it's time for my favorite part, the taste test. So let me open up one of these jars. I think I'm going to keep one of them closed because what you can do is just leave it in the fridge and then until you're ready to eat it. So I'm going to open up this one here, and it should be quite well sealed. So I'm going to use a can opener, and I'm going to smell it. It smells like the perfect amount of funk. All right, let's give it a try. Now, my mom told me after I finished filming this video, at least the first part, is that we added too much salt. I think I mentioned earlier that we need 100 grams of salt per kilogram. However, it's more like 50 grams of salt per kilogram. So salty. Oh my God. I think this is the first time that I've ever spit anything out of food that I made. This is a little bit too salty for me. And by a little bit, I mean a lot. Like, it's very salty. Learn from my mistakes. Sometimes not every video is going to turn out, perfectly. And this is why it's very important to taste test and trial out the recipes before filming them. And unfortunately, I was relying on my mom. My mom has made this recipe like 1,001 times, so I don't know how there was some miscommunication with regards to the salt. However, it happens to the best of us, and this is a failed recipe, but literally it's just the one thing is the salt. That's the only thing I would suggest is modifying. But I'm telling you guys, this turns out really tasty if you use less salt. Take my mom's word for it. Hers is really good. Anyways, if you enjoyed today's YouTube video, make sure to click like, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and comment down below your favorite fermented food recipe, if you have any, that is. And also you can follow me on Instagram at Greco Recipes, or you can click the link in the description box down below. Bye, have a great day.